Chapter 1. The Unexpected Arrival. The sun was setting over the city skyline, casting a golden glow over the luxurious facade of the Eclipse Hotel. The building stood tall and imposing, its glass windows reflecting the fading light like 1,000 tiny mirrors. Inside, the lobby buzzed with activity, guests checking in, staff members scurrying about, and the faint hum of conversation filling the air. It was a place of elegance and sophistication, a haven for those who could afford its opulence. But tonight, the Eclipse Hotel was about to become the stage for a story no one saw coming. Amara Johnson stepped through the revolving doors, her presence immediately commanding attention, though she did her best to blend in. Dressed in a sleek, tailored pantsuit and carrying a modest overnight bag, she looked like any other guest, polished, professional, and unassuming. Her dark skin glowed under the warm lobby lights, and her sharp eyes scanned the room with a quiet intensity. To anyone watching, she was just another business traveler. But Amara was far from ordinary. She was the owner of the Eclipse Hotel. Amara had inherited the hotel from her late father, a self-made millionaire who had built the Eclipse from the ground up. It was his pride and joy, a symbol of his success and his legacy. But Amara had always been more than just an heiress. She had worked tirelessly to prove herself, earning degrees in business and hospitality, and taking on increasingly demanding roles within the company. Now, at 34, she was the CEO of the entire Eclipse chain, a powerhouse in the industry. Yet, despite her success, she rarely made public appearances at the hotels. She preferred to work behind the scenes, trusting her managers to handle the day-to-day operations. Tonight, however, was different. Amara had decided to visit the flagship hotel incognito. She wanted to see how things were running without the fanfare of her arrival. She wanted to know if the Eclipse was living up to its reputation and to her father's legacy. It was a risky move, but Amara thrived on challenges. She had always believed that the best way to understand a business was to experience it as a customer. She approached the front desk, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. The receptionist, a young man with a perfectly pressed uniform and a practiced smile, greeted her without looking up. "Welcome to the Eclipse Hotel. How may I assist you?" "I have a reservation under Johnson," Amara said, her voice calm and steady. The receptionist typed something into his computer, his smile never wavering. "Ah, yes, Ms. Johnson. We have you in one of our deluxe suites. If you'll just provide a credit card for incidentals, I'll get your key ready." Amara handed over her card, her expression neutral. She watched as the receptionist processed the payment, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Everything seemed to be running smoothly, just as she had expected. But then, something caught her eye. A group of staff members had gathered near the elevators, whispering among themselves. They were glancing in her direction, their expressions a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Amara frowned slightly, but said nothing. She was used to being watched. Her presence often drew attention, whether she wanted it or not. But there was something about the way these employees were looking at her that made her uneasy. The receptionist handed her the key card and wished her a pleasant stay. Amara thanked him and turned toward the elevators, her bag slung over her shoulder. As she walked, she could feel the eyes of the staff members following her. She ignored them, focusing instead on the task at hand. She had a lot to do tonight, inspecting the rooms, evaluating the service, and perhaps even mingling with the guests. She was here to work, not to socialize. But as she reached the elevators, one of the staff members stepped forward, blocking her path. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a stern expression and a name tag that reads security. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his voice firm. "Can I see your key card, please?" Amara raised an eyebrow, but handed over the card without protest. The security guard examined it closely, his frown deepening. He glanced at his colleagues, then back at her. "This is a deluxe suite," he said, his tone accusatory. "Are you sure you're supposed to be here?" Amara's eyes narrowed. "Yes, I'm sure. I have a reservation." The guard didn't seem convinced. He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a whisper. "We've had some issues with unauthorized guests lately. People trying to sneak into rooms they haven't paid for. You understand, right?" Amara felt a surge of anger, but kept her composure. "I understand the need for security," she said evenly. "But I assure you, I'm a paying guest. If you have any doubts, you can check with the front desk." The guard hesitated, then nodded. "Wait here." He walked back to the front desk, leaving Amara standing awkwardly in the middle of the lobby. She could feel the eyes of the other guests on her now, their curious glances making her skin crawl. She clenched her fists, trying to stay calm. This was not how she had envisioned her evening going. A few minutes later, the guard returned, his expression unreadable. "Everything checks out," he said, handing her the key card. "Enjoy your stay." Amara took the card without a word and stepped into the elevator, her heart pounding. As the doors closed, she leaned against the wall, letting out a long breath. She had faced discrimination before, but it never got easier. The assumptions, the suspicion, the way people looked at her as if she didn't belong, it was exhausting. But Amara wasn't one to back down. If anything, this incident had only strengthened her resolve. She would find out what was really going on at the Eclipse Hotel, and she would make sure that no one, guest or employee, was ever treated this way again. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened to reveal the luxurious hallway of the deluxe suites. Amara straightened her shoulders, her expression hardening. Tonight, she was just another guest. But by the time she left, the Eclipse Hotel would never be the same. Little did she know, her night was about to take an even stranger turn. Chapter 2. The Accusation. Amara stepped into her suite, the tension from the lobby still lingering in her chest. The room was immaculate. Plush carpeting, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city, and a king-size bed draped in crisp, white linens. It was exactly what she expected from a deluxe suite at the Eclipse, but tonight, the opulence felt hollow. She dropped her bag by the door and walked over to the window, staring out at the twinkling lights below. The city looked peaceful from up here, but Amara's mind was anything but calm. She replayed the encounter with the security guard in her head, analyzing every word, every glance. It wasn't the first time she'd been treated with suspicion because of her race, but it never failed to sting. What bothered her most was that this was her hotel. These were her employees. She had worked tirelessly to create a culture of inclusivity and respect within the Eclipse chain, and yet, here she was being treated like a criminal in her own establishment. Amara shook her head, trying to push the thoughts aside. She had come here to assess the hotel's operations, not to dwell on her own frustrations. She needed to focus. Pulling out her phone, she began jotting down notes. Her first impressions of the lobby, the efficiency of the front desk, the behavior of the staff. She made a mental note to address the security guard's conduct in her report. It was a small incident, but it spoke volumes about the underlying issues that needed to be addressed. As she was typing, a knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. She frowned, glancing at the clock on the nightstand. It was past 9 p.m., too late for housekeeping or room service. She walked over to the door and peered through the peephole. Standing outside were two hotel employees, a woman in a manager's uniform and the same security guard from earlier. Amara's stomach tightened. This couldn't be good. She opened the door, her expression calm but guarded. "Can I help you?" The manager, a middle-aged woman with a tight smile, stepped forward. "Good evening, Ms. Johnson. I'm Claire, the night manager. I apologize for the intrusion, but we need to speak with you about a sensitive matter." Amara crossed her arms, her gaze flickering between Claire and the security guard. "What kind of sensitive matter?" Claire hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "It's about a missing item. A valuable piece of jewelry was reported stolen from one of the suites earlier today, and we're conducting a routine investigation." Amara's eyes narrowed. "And what does that have to do with me?" The security guard stepped forward, his tone accusatory. "We have reason to believe you may have been involved." Amara stared at him, her disbelief quickly turning to anger. "Excuse me?" Claire shot the guard a warning look before turning back to Amara. "We're not accusing you of anything, Ms. Johnson, but we did receive a report that someone matching your description was seen near the suite where the item went missing. We're just following protocol." Amara's jaw tightened. "Let me get this straight. You're accusing me of theft based on nothing more than my appearance?" Claire's smile faltered. "We're not accusing you, ma'am. We're just asking for your cooperation. If you could allow us to search your room, we can clear this up quickly." Amara laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "You want to search my room? Do you have a warrant?" The security guard's face reddened. "We don't need a warrant. This is private property, and we have the right to investigate any suspicious activity." Amara stepped closer to him, her voice low and steady. "Listen carefully. I am a paying guest at this hotel, and I have done nothing wrong. If you want to search my room, you'll need to call the police. Until then, I suggest you leave me alone." Claire looked uneasy, clearly caught between her duty to the hotel and the growing tension in the room. "Ms. Johnson, please understand that we're just trying to do our jobs. If you could just—" "No," Amara interrupted, her tone final. I won't tolerate being treated like a criminal in my own. She stopped herself, biting back the words. She had almost revealed her identity, but now wasn't the time. She needed to see how far this would go. Claire sighed, clearly frustrated. Very well. We'll leave you for now, but this isn't over. We'll be in touch. Amara watched as they walked away, her heart pounding in her chest. She closed the door and leaned against it, her mind racing. This was worse than she had thought. Not only were her employees quick to judge based on appearances, but they were also willing to accuse a guest of theft without any evidence. It was a glaring failure of the hotel's policies, and a personal failure on her part as the owner. She walked back to the window, her hands clenched into fists. She had come here to observe, to gather information. But now, she realized she needed to do more. She needed to expose the flaws in the system, to hold her employees accountable. And she needed to do it without revealing who she was, at least not yet. As she stood there, a plan began to form in her mind. She would play along, let them think they had the upper hand. She would gather evidence, document every interaction, every misstep. And when the time was right, she would reveal the truth, not just to the staff, but to the world. But first, she needed to find out who had reported her. Someone had seen her near the suite where the jewelry was stolen, and she had a feeling it wasn't a coincidence. Someone was setting her up, and she intended to find out why. Amara grabbed her phone and began typing, her fingers flying across the screen. She had work to do. The night was far from over, and so was her fight for justice. Chapter 3: The Unlikely Ally. Amara spent the next hour pacing her suite, her mind racing with questions. Who had reported her? Why had they targeted her specifically? And how had they known she would be near the suite where the jewelry was stolen? The more she thought about it, the more convinced she became that this was no random accusation. Someone had gone out of their way to frame her, and she needed to find out who and why. She considered calling the police, but quickly dismissed the idea. If she involved the authorities, her anonymity would be compromised, and she'd lose the chance to uncover the truth on her own terms. No, she needed to handle this discreetly, but she couldn't do it alone. She needed someone inside the hotel who could help her navigate the staff and gather information without raising suspicion. As if on cue, there was another knock at her door. Amara froze, her heart skipping a beat. Was it the manager and the security guard again? Or had they decided to escalate things further? She approached the door cautiously and peered through the peephole. To her surprise, it wasn't Claire or the guard. It was a young woman in a housekeeping uniform, her face pale and her hands trembling as she clutched a small notebook. Amara opened the door, her expression wary. "Can I help you?" The woman glanced over her shoulder, as if checking to make sure no one was watching, then stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ms. Johnson, my name is Lisa. I work in housekeeping. I need to talk to you. It's important." Amara studied her for a moment, trying to gauge her intentions. Lisa looked nervous, but there was a sincerity in her eyes that made Amara pause. She stepped aside, gesturing for Lisa to come in. "All right, but make it quick." Lisa hurried inside, closing the door behind her. She took a deep breath, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I know you didn't steal the jewelry. I know because I think I know who did." Amara's eyebrows shot up. "Go on." Lisa hesitated, then opened her notebook and handed it to Amara. Inside were detailed notes, names, dates, and descriptions of suspicious behavior among the staff. Amara flipped through the pages, her eyes widening as she realized what she was looking at. "You've been keeping track of this?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. Lisa nodded, her hands twisting nervously in front of her. "I've been working here for 2 years, and I've noticed things. People going into rooms they shouldn't, items going missing, staff members acting strange. I started writing it all down because I didn't know what else to do. I tried to tell management, but no one would listen to me. They said I was being paranoid." Amara closed the notebook, her mind racing. This was exactly the kind of information she needed, but she still didn't understand why Lisa had come to her. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "You don't even know me." Lisa looked down at her feet, her voice barely audible. "Because I saw what happened in the lobby. The way they treated you, it wasn't right. And when I heard they were accusing you of theft, I knew something was wrong. You don't seem like the kind of person who would do something like that. And I thought, maybe you could help me." Amara's expression softened. She could see the fear and frustration in Lisa's eyes, and it reminded her of her own struggles. This young woman was risking her job, and possibly more, by coming to her. She deserved answers, just as much as Amara did. "All right," Amara said, handing the notebook back to Lisa. "Tell me everything you know." Over the next hour, Lisa poured out everything she had observed. She told Amara about a group of staff members who seemed to be working together: security guards, housekeepers, and even a few managers. They were careful, but Lisa had noticed patterns. Items would go missing shortly after certain employees entered a room, and those same employees would often be seen exchanging envelopes or having hushed conversations in the staff lounge. "I think they're stealing from the guests," Lisa said, her voice trembling. "And I think they're using the security system to cover their tracks. That's why no one believes me. They got everyone fooled." Amara listened intently, her mind piecing together the puzzle. It was worse than she had thought. This wasn't just a case of a few bad apples. It was a coordinated effort, a network of corruption within her own hotel. And now, they had targeted her, either because they saw her as a threat or because they thought she would be an easy scapegoat. "Do you have any proof?" Amara asked. "Something concrete that we can use to expose them?" Lisa hesitated, then nodded. "I think so. There's a storage room in the basement where they keep the stolen items. I've never been inside, but I've seen them going in and out. If we could get in there, we might find something." Amara considered this. It was risky, but it might be their only chance to get the evidence they needed. "All right," she said finally. "Let's do it. But we need to be careful. If they catch us, things could get ugly." Lisa nodded, her expression determined. "I'll take you to the basement. But we'll have to go now, while most of the staff are on their breaks." Amara grabbed her phone and a small flashlight from her bag, then followed Lisa out of the suite. They moved quickly and quietly through the hallways, avoiding the main elevators and taking the service stairs instead. The basement was dimly lit and eerily quiet, the air thick with the smell of cleaning supplies and damp concrete. Lisa led Amara to a door at the far end of the hallway, her hands shaking as she fumbled with the keys. "This is it," she whispered. "But we have to be fast. If anyone catches us here." "I know," Amara said, her voice steady. "Let's go." They slipped inside the storage room, the beam of Amara's flashlight cutting through the darkness. The room was filled with boxes and crates, some labeled with room numbers and dates. Amara began searching through them, her heart pounding as she uncovered stolen items: jewelry, electronics, even cash. It was a treasure trove of evidence, but it was also a damning indictment of the hotel's security. As she was examining a particularly ornate necklace, Lisa suddenly grabbed her arm, her eyes wide with fear. "Someone's coming," she hissed. Amara froze, listening. Sure enough, she could hear footsteps approaching, followed by the sound of voices. She quickly turned off the flashlight, plunging the room into darkness. They crouched behind a stack of boxes, holding their breath as the door creaked open. Two figures stepped inside, their voices low and urgent. Amara recognized one of them immediately. It was the security guard from earlier. The other was a man she didn't recognize, but from the way he was dressed, she guessed he was another employee. "We need to move this stuff tonight," the guard said, his tone tense. "If anyone finds out..." "Relax," the other man replied. "No one's going to find out. We got everything under control." Amara's grip tightened on the flashlight. She had heard enough. These men were the ones behind the thefts, and they were the ones who had framed her. She exchanged a glance with Lisa, silently communicating her plan. They needed to get out of here and call the police. But first they needed proof. As the two men began moving boxes, Amara carefully pulled out her phone and started recording, capturing their conversation and the stolen items in the background. It was risky, but it was the only way to ensure they couldn't talk their way out of this. Just as she was about to signal Lisa to make a run for the door, the guard suddenly stopped, his head snapping in their direction. "Did you hear that?" he asked, his voice sharp. Amara's heart stopped. They had been discovered. The guard took a step toward their hiding spot, his hand reaching for the flashlight on his belt. Amara knew they had only seconds to act. She grabbed Lisa's hand and whispered, "On three. 1, 2. Before she could say 3, The door burst open, and a voice rang out. "Freeze! Police!" The room was suddenly flooded with light as officers swarmed in, their guns drawn. The guard and his accomplice froze, their faces pale with shock. Amara and Lisa stayed hidden, watching as the men were handcuffed and led away. As the chaos subsided, Amara finally stood up, her legs trembling with relief. She turned to Lisa, who looked just as stunned. "Did you call the police?" Amara asked. Lisa shook her head. "No, I thought you did." Amara frowned, her mind racing. If neither of them had called the police, then who had? Before she could ponder the question further, a familiar voice called out from the doorway. "Amara, are you all right?" She turned to see Claire, the night manager, standing there with a look of genuine concern on her face. Behind her were several other staff members, their expressions a mix of confusion and fear. Amara's eyes narrowed. "Claire, what are you doing here?" Claire stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I called the police. I overheard the guard and his accomplice talking earlier, and I realized what was going on. I didn't know who else to trust, so I took matters into my own hands." Amara studied her for a moment, trying to gauge her sincerity. Claire had been part of the problem earlier, but now she was claiming to be part of the solution. It was hard to know what to believe. "We'll talk about this later," Amara said finally. "Right now, we need to make sure this doesn't happen again." Claire nodded, her expression solemn. "Of course. Whatever you need." As the police began processing the scene, Amara pulled Lisa aside. "You did good tonight," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You took a huge risk, and it paid off." Lisa smiled weakly, her hands still shaking. "I just wanted to do the right thing." Amara placed a hand on her shoulder, her tone firm. "You did. And now, it's time for me to do the same." She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. The night was far from over, and there were still questions that needed answers. But for the first time since she had arrived at the Eclipse Hotel, Amara felt a glimmer of hope. She had an ally in Lisa, and together, they were going to expose the truth, no matter what it took. Chapter 4. The Web Unravels. The police had taken the guard and his accomplice into custody, and the stolen items were being cataloged as evidence. The basement, once a hidden hub of corruption, was now a crime scene, buzzing with activity. Amara stood to the side, watching as officers interviewed staff members and collected statements. Lisa hovered nearby, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, as if trying to hold herself together. Claire approached Amara cautiously, her expression a mix of guilt and relief. "Ms. Johnson, I don't know what to say. I had no idea things had gotten this bad. If I had known, you would have done what, exactly?" Amara interrupted, her tone sharp. "You were quick to accuse me earlier. Did it ever occur to you that I might not be the problem?" Claire flinched, her face flushing with shame. "I'm sorry. I was just following protocol. I didn't mean to." "Protocol?" Amara cut her off again, her voice rising. "Protocol doesn't include profiling guests based on their appearance. Protocol doesn't include turning a blind eye to theft and corruption within your own staff. You had a responsibility to do better, and you failed." Claire looked down, her shoulders slumping. "You're right. I failed, and I'll do whatever it takes to make it right." Amara studied her for a moment, then sighed. "We'll see. For now, I need you to cooperate fully with the police. And I want a list of every employee who's been involved in this, directly or indirectly. No excuses, no cover-ups. Understood?" Claire nodded quickly. "Understood. I'll get started right away." As Claire hurried off, Lisa stepped closer to Amara, her voice low. "Do you think she's telling the truth? That she didn't know what was going on?" Amara shook her head. "I don't know, but we'll find out soon enough. For now, we need to focus on what we do know." She pulled out her phone and opened the recording she had made in the storage room. The voices of the guard and his accomplice were clear, their conversation damning. It was solid evidence, but Amara knew it wasn't enough. They needed to uncover the full extent of the operation, who was behind it, how long it had been going on, and how many people were involved. "We need to talk to the police," Lisa said, her voice trembling. "They need to know everything." Amara nodded. "Agreed. But first I need to make a call." She stepped away from the chaos and dialed a number she knew by heart. After a few rings, a familiar voice answered. Amara? It's late. Is everything okay? Not exactly, Marcus, Amara replied, her voice tight. I'm at the Eclipse. There's been a situation. Marcus was her lawyer, and one of the few people who knew the full extent of her involvement with the hotel chain. He listened quietly as Amara filled him in on the night's events, his tone growing increasingly serious. This is bad, he said when she finished. But it's also an opportunity. If you play this right, you can clean house and send a strong message to the rest of the staff. But you need to be careful. If word gets out that you were there incognito, it could backfire. I know, Amara said. That's why I need your help. I want to arrange a meeting with the police and the hotel's senior management. But I need to do it on my terms. Consider it done, Marcus replied. I'll make the arrangements. In the meantime, stay out of sight. Let the police handle the immediate fallout. Amara hung up and turned back to Lisa, who was watching her with wide eyes. What now? Lisa asked. Now, Amara said, we wait. But not for long. The next few hours passed in a blur. The police continued their investigation, interviewing staff and collecting evidence. Amara and Lisa stayed in the background, observing quietly. Amara used the time to gather more information, discreetly questioning employees and piecing together the timeline of events. What she discovered was both shocking and infuriating. The theft ring had been operating for months, if not longer. They targeted high-profile guests, stealing valuables, and using the hotel security system to cover their tracks. The guard and his accomplice were just the tip of the iceberg. There were others involved, including at least one member of senior management. As the sun began to rise, casting a pale light over the city, Marcus arrived at the hotel. He was a tall, imposing figure with a no-nonsense demeanor, and he immediately took charge of the situation. He arranged a private meeting with the police and the hotel's senior staff, including Claire. Amara waited until everyone was seated before making her entrance. The room fell silent as she walked in, her presence commanding attention. She took a seat at the head of the table, her expression calm but unyielding. Thank you for coming, she began, her voice steady. I'm sure you're all wondering why you're here. Let me make one thing clear. This hotel is mine. I am Amara Johnson, the owner of the Eclipse chain. There was a collective gasp from the staff, followed by a stunned silence. Claire's face turned pale, and several others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Amara continued, her tone firm. Last night, I discovered a theft ring operating within this hotel. It involved multiple employees, including members of senior management. Thanks to the bravery of one of your colleagues, she gestured to Lisa, who was standing quietly in the corner. We were able to uncover the truth and bring the perpetrators to justice. She paused, letting her words sink in. But this isn't just about theft. It's about accountability. It's about the culture of this hotel, a culture that allowed this to happen. A culture that I, as the owner, am responsible for. And that culture is going to change. She leaned forward, her gaze sweeping the room. Effective immediately, there will be a full audit of the hotel's operations. Anyone involved in illegal activities will be terminated and prosecuted. And anyone who knew about this and did nothing will be held accountable. The room was silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Finally, Claire spoke, her voice trembling. Ms. Johnson, I want to apologize. I should have done more. I should have seen what was happening. Amara looked at her, her expression unreadable. Apologies are a start, but actions speak louder than words. If you want to keep your job, you're going to have to prove that you're willing to do better. Claire nodded, her eyes filled with determination. I will. I promise. Amara stood, signaling the end of the meeting. This is just the beginning. The Eclipse Hotel is going to be a place of integrity and respect for our guests and for our employees. And I will do whatever it takes to make that happen. As the staff filed out of the room, Lisa approached Amara, her eyes shining with admiration. You were amazing, she said. I've never seen anyone stand up to them like that. Amara smiled faintly. It's not over yet, but we're on the right track. Lisa hesitated, then asked, what happens now? Now, Amara said, we rebuild, and we make sure nothing like this ever happens again. As she looked out the window at the rising sun, Amara felt a sense of resolve. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but she was ready. She had faced the darkness head-on, and she had emerged stronger. And she wasn't going to stop until the Eclipse Hotel was everything it was meant to be. Chapter 5: The Aftermath. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. The police investigation expanded, uncovering more names and more stolen items. The media caught wind of the scandal, and soon the Eclipse Hotel was making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Reporters camped outside the building, eager for a statement, but Amara remained silent, focusing instead on the work that needed to be done. She spent long hours in her office, poring over financial records, employee files, and security logs. Marcus worked alongside her, helping to coordinate the legal and logistical aspects of the cleanup. Together, they identified the key players in the theft ring and began the process of removing them from the company. It wasn't easy. Some employees fought back, denying any involvement and threatening lawsuits. Others tried to shift the blame, pointing fingers at their colleagues in a desperate attempt to save themselves. But Amara was relentless. She had the evidence, and she wasn't afraid to use it. One by one, the corrupt employees were fired, their names added to a growing list of terminations. The hotel's senior management was overhauled, with Claire being demoted to a lower position pending further review. Amara knew that Claire had made mistakes, but she also recognized her willingness to change. It was a second chance, one that Claire would have to earn. As the dust began to settle, Amara turned her attention to the hotel's future. She called a meeting with the remaining staff, determined to set a new tone for the Eclipse. The staff gathered in the hotel's grand ballroom, their faces a mix of anxiety and curiosity. Amara stood at the front of the room, her presence commanding attention. She waited for the murmurs to die down before speaking. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steady and clear. "The past few days have been difficult for everyone, and I want to acknowledge the toll it's taken on all of us. But difficult times also present opportunities. Opportunities to reflect, to learn, and to grow." She paused, letting her words sink in. What happened here was a betrayal, not just of our guests, but of each other. It was a failure of leadership, of accountability, and of trust. And it's my responsibility to make sure it never happens again. She stepped forward, her gaze sweeping the room. "Starting today, we're going to rebuild this hotel from the ground up. We're going to create a culture of integrity, respect, and transparency. And we're going to do it together." Amara outlined her vision for the future, detailing the changes she planned to implement. New security protocols, regular audits, and mandatory training sessions on diversity and inclusion were just the beginning. She also announced the creation of an anonymous reporting system, allowing employees to voice concerns without fear of retaliation. "I know this won't be easy," she said, her tone softening. "Change never is. But I believe in this hotel, and I believe in all of you. Together, we can make the Eclipse a place we can all be proud of." The room erupted into applause, the staff's relief and determination palpable. Amara felt a surge of hope as she looked out at their faces. They were ready for a fresh start, and so was she. After the meeting, Lisa approached Amara, her eyes shining with gratitude. "That was incredible," she said. "You've given everyone hope." Amara smiled, placing a hand on Lisa's shoulder. "You played a big part in this too. If it weren't for your courage, none of this would have been possible." Lisa blushed, shaking her head. "I just did what I thought was right. And that's exactly what we need more of," Amara said. "Which is why I'd like to offer you a new position, as my assistant. You've proven that you have the integrity and the drive to make a difference, and I'd be honored to have you by my side as we move forward." Lisa's eyes widened in surprise. "Are you serious?" I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Amara replied with a grin. "We got a lot of work to do." Lisa nodded, her face breaking into a smile. "Yes, absolutely." As the days turned into weeks, the Eclipse Hotel began to transform. The new policies took effect, and the staff embraced the changes with enthusiasm. Guests noticed the difference, too, praising the improved service and renewed sense of professionalism. Amara worked tirelessly, overseeing every aspect of the hotel's operations. She met with employees, listened to their concerns, and made herself accessible in a way she never had before. It was exhausting, but it was also deeply rewarding. One evening, As she stood on the rooftop terrace overlooking the city, Marcus joined her, a glass of wine in hand. "You've done an incredible job," he said, handing her the glass. "The hotel is thriving, and the staff respects you more than ever." Amara took the glass, her expression thoughtful. "It's a start, but there's still so much to do." Marcus nodded, his tone serious. "You can't do it all alone, you know. You need to take care of yourself, too." Amara smiled faintly. "I know, and I will. But right now, this is where I need to be." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the city lights twinkle below. For the first time in a long time, Amara felt a sense of peace. The road ahead was still uncertain, but she was ready to face it, with strength, with resilience, and with the knowledge that she had made a difference. The Eclipse Hotel was more than just a business to her. It was a legacy, a symbol of her father's dreams and her own determination. And she was going to make sure it shone brighter than ever. Chapter 6: The Ripple Effect. The transformation of the Eclipse Hotel didn't go unnoticed. News outlets that had once criticized the hotel for its scandal now praised its swift and transparent response. Industry leaders took note of Amara's leadership, and the Eclipse became a case study in crisis management and corporate accountability. But for Amara, the real measure of success wasn't in the headlines. It was in the day-to-day operations of the hotel and the morale of its staff. One morning, as she walked through the lobby, she noticed a group of employees gathered around the new community board she had installed. It was filled with notes of appreciation, upcoming event announcements, and even a few anonymous suggestions for improvement. She paused to read one of the notes. Asterisk, "Thank you for giving us a voice. This feels like a new beginning." Asterisk, a small smile tugged at her lips. This was the kind of change she had hoped for. Lisa, now her assistant, approached with a tablet in hand. "Morning, Amara. The numbers from last week are in, and they're looking good. Guest satisfaction is up, and we've had a surge in bookings. People are talking about the Eclipse again, in a good way." Amara nodded, pleased but not surprised. "That's great to hear. But let's not get complacent. We need to keep pushing forward." Lisa hesitated, then said, "There's something else. A reporter from the Times reached out. They want to do a feature on you, about how you turned the hotel around. They're calling it The Rise of the Eclipse." Amara raised an eyebrow. "A feature on me? I'm not sure that's necessary. The focus should be on the team, not just one person." "I get that," Lisa said. "But you're the face of this transformation. People want to hear your story. And honestly, it could be good for the hotel." Amara considered this. She had always been private, preferring to let her work speak for itself. But Lisa had a point. If sharing her story could inspire others and bring more attention to the hotel, maybe it was worth it. "All right," she said finally. "Set up the interview. But let's make sure the focus is on the team and the changes we've made, not just me." Lisa grinned. "Got it. I'll take care of it." The interview took place a few days later in the hotel's newly renovated lounge. The reporter, a seasoned journalist named Evelyn Carter, was warm and professional, putting Amara at ease. They talked about the scandal, the changes that had been implemented, and the challenges of rebuilding trust. "What's next for the Eclipse?" Evelyn asked toward the end of the interview. "You've accomplished so much in such a short time. Where do you go from here?" Amara leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "We're just getting started. The Eclipse has always been more than just a hotel. It's a symbol of excellence and innovation. My goal is to take that to the next level. We're exploring new initiatives like sustainability programs and community outreach. And we're committed to creating a workplace where everyone feels valued and empowered." Evelyn nodded, clearly impressed. "It sounds like you're not just rebuilding a hotel. You're redefining what it means to be a leader in this industry." Amara smiled. "I hope so. Leadership isn't about power or prestige. It's about responsibility. It's about creating opportunities for others to succeed." The article was published a week later, and it was even more impactful than Amara had anticipated. It painted her as a visionary leader, someone who had turned adversity into opportunity. But more importantly, it highlighted the collective effort of the Eclipse team, emphasizing the importance of collaboration and accountability. As the hotel continued to thrive, Amara began to think bigger. She had always been focused on the Eclipse, but now she saw an opportunity to make a broader impact. She reached out to other business leaders, sharing her experiences and advocating for more inclusive and ethical practices. She even started working on a book, tentatively titled Leading with Integrity, which explored the lessons she had learned throughout her career. But not everyone was happy with her success. One evening, as she was leaving the hotel, she noticed a man lingering near the entrance. He was dressed in a suit, but something about him seemed off. She brushed it off, assuming he was a guest, but as she walked to her car, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned around, her heart racing. The man was following her, his expression unreadable. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice steady despite her unease. The man stopped, his eyes narrowing. "You think you're untouchable, don't you? With your fancy hotel and your perfect little life." Amara's instincts kicked in. She took a step back, her hand reaching for her phone. "I don't know who you are, but you need to leave." The man smirked, taking a step closer. "You ruined my life. You think you can just fire people and walk away like nothing happened?" Realization dawned on Amara. This was one of the employees she had let go, someone who had been involved in the theft ring. She had expected backlash, but not like this. Before she could react, a voice called out from behind her. "Hey, back off." It was Lisa, accompanied by one of the hotel security guards. The man hesitated, then turned and ran, disappearing into the night. Amara let out a shaky breath, her heart still pounding. "Thanks," she said to Lisa and the guard. "I didn't expect that." Lisa looked worried. "Are you okay? Should we call the police?" Amara shook her head. "No, it's fine, but we need to be more vigilant. This isn't over yet." The incident was a stark reminder that not everyone would welcome the changes she was making, but it also strengthened her resolve. She wasn't just fighting for the Eclipse. She was fighting for a better way of doing business, one that prioritized people over profits. Over the next few weeks, she implemented additional security measures and held a series of workshops on workplace safety and conflict resolution. She also reached out to the employees who had been let go, offering them resources and support to help them move forward. It wasn't an easy process, but it was the right thing to do. As she stood on the rooftop terrace one evening, looking out at the city, she felt a sense of pride. The Eclipse was more than just a hotel. It was a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of doing what's right, even when it's hard. Lisa joined her, handing her a cup of tea. "You've done an amazing job, Amara. But don't forget to take a moment to enjoy it." Amara smiled, taking the tea. "I will, but there's still so much more to do." Lisa nodded. "And we'll do it together." As they stood there, watching the sun set over the city, Amara felt a sense of hope. The road ahead was long, but she was ready. And she wasn't alone. Chapter 7. The Storm Before the Calm. The incident with the disgruntled former employee had shaken Amara more than she cared to admit. Though she had brushed it off in front of Lisa and the security team, the encounter lingered in her mind like a shadow. It was a stark reminder that not everyone would embrace the changes she was making, and some might even seek to undermine her efforts. But Amara wasn't one to back down. If anything, the confrontation had only strengthened her resolve. Over the next few days, she doubled down on her efforts to secure the hotel and protect her staff. She hired additional security personnel, installed new surveillance systems, and implemented stricter access controls. She also held a series of meetings with the staff, addressing their concerns and reassuring them that their safety was her top priority. "We've come too far to let anyone derail us," she told them during one of the meetings. "But we also can't let fear dictate our actions. We're going to stay vigilant, but we're also going to keep moving forward." The staff responded with a mix of gratitude and determination. They had seen firsthand how much Amara cared about them, and they were willing to stand by her through whatever challenges lay ahead. Meanwhile, the Eclipse Hotel continued to thrive. The positive press from the Times article had brought in a wave of new guests, and the hotel's reputation was steadily improving. Amara took pride in the progress they had made, but she knew they couldn't afford to rest on their laurels. There was still so much to do. One afternoon, as she was reviewing the hotel's financial reports, Lisa knocked on her office door. "Got a minute?" she asked, holding a folder in her hand. "Of course," Amara said, gesturing for her to come in. "What's on your mind?" Lisa sat down and opened the folder, revealing a stack of documents. "I've been going through the employee records like you asked, and I found something interesting." Amara leaned forward, Her curiosity piqued. Go on. Remember Claire? The former night manager. Lisa asked. I was looking into her background, and I found some discrepancies. Her references don't check out, and there are gaps in her employment history that she never explained. Amara frowned. That's odd. Did you confront her about it? Lisa shook her head. Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. I know she's been trying to prove herself since the scandal, but this makes me wonder if there's more to her story. Amara considered this. Claire had been demoted after the scandal, but she had seemed genuinely committed to making amends. Still, Lisa's findings were concerning. Let's bring her in for a meeting, Amara said finally. We need to get to the bottom of this. Claire arrived at Amara's office later that day, her expression a mix of curiosity and apprehension. You wanted to see me? She asked, sitting down across from Amara and Lisa. Amara nodded, her tone calm but firm. We've been reviewing employee records as part of our ongoing efforts to improve transparency, and we noticed some inconsistencies in your file. Claire's face paled, but she quickly composed herself. Inconsistencies? What do you mean? Lisa handed her the folder. Your references don't check out, and there are gaps in your employment history that you never explained. We need to know why. Claire hesitated, her hands trembling as she flipped through the documents. Finally, she let out a sigh and looked up at Amara. I didn't think it would matter, she said quietly. I was desperate for a job when I applied here, and I may have exaggerated some things on my resume. Amara's eyes narrowed. Exaggerated how? Claire looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't have as much experience as I claimed, and some of the jobs I listed, I never actually worked there. I just needed a way to support my family. The room fell silent as Amara processed this. She had always believed in second chances, but this was a serious breach of trust. Why didn't you tell us this sooner? She asked. Claire shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. I was afraid. I thought if anyone found out, I'd lose my job. And after everything that happened with the scandal, I didn't want to risk it. Amara exchanged a glance with Lisa, then turned back to Claire. I appreciate your honesty, but this is a serious issue. We need to discuss how to move forward. Claire nodded, her shoulders slumping in defeat. I understand. Whatever you decide, I'll accept it. After Claire left, Amara and Lisa spent the next hour discussing the situation. It was a difficult decision, but ultimately, they agreed to give Claire one last chance. She would be placed on probation and required to complete additional training. If she proved herself during that time, she could keep her job. If not, she would be let go. It's a risk, Lisa admitted. But I think she deserves a chance to make things right. Amara nodded. I agree, but we need to be clear about our expectations. One more misstep, and she's out. As the weeks went by, Claire worked hard to prove herself. She completed the training, took on extra responsibilities, and even volunteered to mentor new employees. Amara kept a close eye on her, but she was impressed by the effort Claire was putting in. It seemed like she was truly committed to turning things around. But just as things were starting to settle down, a new challenge emerged. One evening, as Amara was preparing to leave the hotel, she received an urgent call from Lisa. You need to see this, Lisa said, her voice tense. It's all over the news. Amara quickly pulled up the news on her phone, her heart sinking as she read the headline. Eclipse Hotel faces new allegations. Former employees claim unfair treatment. The article featured interviews with several former employees, including the man who had confronted Amara outside the hotel. They accused her of being ruthless and unfair, claiming that she had fired them without cause and treated them poorly. Amara felt a surge of anger as she read the article. It was filled with half-truths and outright lies, but she knew how damaging it could be. This is a hit piece, she said to Lisa. They're trying to discredit us. What do we do? Lisa asked. Amara took a deep breath, her mind racing. We fight back, but we do it the right way. Let's gather all the evidence we have, employment records, termination notices, everything. And we'll issue a statement refuting these claims. Lisa nodded. I'll get started right away. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Amara and her team worked tirelessly to gather evidence and prepare a response. They also reached out to current employees, asking them to share their experiences and counter the negative narrative. When the time came, Amara held a press conference at the hotel. She stood at the podium, her expression calm but determined, as reporters crowded the room. "Thank you all for being here," she began. "I want to address the recent allegations against the Eclipse Hotel. Let me be clear, these claims are false. They are an attempt to undermine the progress we've made and tarnish the reputation of this hotel and its employees." She went on to present the evidence, detailing the reasons for each termination and highlighting the steps they had taken to ensure fairness and transparency. She also shared testimonials from current employees who spoke about the positive changes Amara had implemented. "The Eclipse Hotel is more than just a business," she concluded. "It's a community, and we will not let anyone tear that community apart." The press conference was a turning point. The negative coverage began to fade, replaced by stories about the hotel's resilience and Amara's leadership. It was a hard-fought victory, but it was also a reminder of the challenges that still lay ahead. As she stood on the rooftop terrace that evening, watching the city lights flicker below, Amara felt a sense of quiet determination. The storm wasn't over yet, but she was ready to face it, with strength, with integrity, and with the knowledge that she wasn't alone. The Eclipse Hotel was her legacy, and she was going to protect it, no matter what. Chapter 8. The Calm After the Storm. The press conference had been a success, but Amara knew the battle wasn't over. The negative press had been mitigated, but the damage to the hotel's reputation would take time to fully repair. She also knew that the disgruntled former employees weren't likely to give up so easily. Still, she felt a sense of cautious optimism. They had weathered the storm, and now it was time to focus on rebuilding. Over the next few weeks, Amara and her team worked tirelessly to reinforce the hotel's image. They launched a new marketing campaign, highlighting the hotel's commitment to integrity, inclusivity, and exceptional service. They also reached out to loyal guests, offering special promotions and personalized thank you notes. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and bookings began to climb once again. But Amara wasn't content to simply restore the hotel's reputation. She wanted to take it to new heights. She began exploring innovative ideas, from sustainability initiatives to partnerships with local artists and businesses. She even started planning a major renovation project, one that would modernize the hotel while preserving its historic charm. One evening, as she was reviewing the renovation plans with Lisa and the hotel's design team, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from Marcus, her lawyer. The subject line read, *urgent, new development, *. Amara excused herself from the meeting and stepped into the hallway to read the email. Her heart sank as she scanned the contents. The former employees who had spoken out against the hotel were now filing a lawsuit, claiming wrongful termination and defamation. They were seeking significant damages, and they had hired a high-profile attorney to represent them. Amara took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. This was exactly what she had feared, a prolonged legal battle that could drain the hotel's resources and distract from their progress. But she also knew they couldn't back down. They had the evidence to prove their case, and she was determined to fight for the truth. She called Marcus immediately. "What's our next move?" she asked, her voice firm. "We'll file a motion to dismiss," Marcus replied. "Their claims are baseless, and we have the documentation to prove it. But we need to be prepared for a long fight. These kinds of cases can drag on for months, even years." Amara nodded, even though Marcus couldn't see her. "Do whatever it takes. We're not going to let them win." The lawsuit cast a shadow over the hotel, but Amara refused to let it derail their progress. She continued to focus on the renovation plans and the new initiatives, determined to show that the Eclipse was stronger than ever. She also made a point of being more visible, walking through the hotel daily and talking to guests and staff alike. Her presence was a reminder that she was fully committed to the hotel's success. One afternoon, as she was chatting with a group of guests in the lobby, she noticed Claire standing nearby, looking nervous. Amara excused herself and walked over. "Everything okay?" she asked. Claire hesitated, then said, "I heard about the lawsuit. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I know this is my fault." Amara frowned. "Your fault? How so?" Claire looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "If I hadn't lied on my resume, none of this would have happened. I feel like I brought all this trouble to the hotel." Amara placed a hand on Claire's shoulder, her tone gentle but firm. This isn't your fault. The people behind the lawsuit made their own choices. You've been working hard to make things right, and that's what matters. Claire looked up, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Amara. That means a lot. Amara smiled. We're a team, and we're going to get through this together. As the weeks turned into months, the lawsuit dragged on, but Amara remained steadfast. She poured her energy into the hotel, determined to prove that the Eclipse was more than just a business. It was a community, and that community was stronger than any legal challenge. One evening, as she was leaving the hotel, she noticed a familiar figure standing near the entrance. It was the man who had confronted her months earlier, the one who had sparked the lawsuit. He looked different now, less angry, more resigned. Amara approached him cautiously. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. The man hesitated, then said, "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything." Amara raised an eyebrow. "What changed your mind?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I realized I was fighting the wrong battle. I was angry, and I wanted to hurt you. But I see now that you're not the enemy. You're just trying to do what's right." Amara studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you for saying that. But actions speak louder than words. If you really want to make amends, you can start by dropping the lawsuit." The man looked down, his expression conflicted. "I'll think about it." A few days later, Amara received a call from Marcus. "You're not going to believe this," he said, his voice filled with relief. "They're dropping the lawsuit." Amara felt a surge of relief, but she also knew this wasn't the end. What made them change their minds? "From what I can tell, they realized they didn't have a case," Marcus replied. "And I think your willingness to stand your ground made an impression." Amara smiled, a sense of quiet triumph washing over her. "We did it." "You did it," Marcus corrected. "This was your fight, and you won." With the lawsuit behind them, the Eclipse Hotel entered a new era of growth and success. The renovation project was completed, and the hotel was more beautiful than ever. The new initiatives were a hit with guests, and the staff was more united than ever before. Amara stood on the rooftop terrace one evening, looking out at the city lights. Lisa joined her, handing her a glass of champagne. "To the Eclipse," she said, raising her glass. Amara clinked her glass against Lisa's, a smile spreading across her face. "To the Eclipse." As they stood there, watching the sun set over the city, Amara felt a sense of peace. The storm had passed, and the calm that followed was even sweeter than she had imagined. The Eclipse Hotel was more than just a business. It was a testament to the power of resilience, integrity, and the belief that doing what's right is always worth it. And Amara knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them, with strength, with courage, and with the knowledge that she had built something truly extraordinary. Chapter 9. A New Dawn. The Eclipse Hotel had become a beacon of resilience and transformation, not just in the hospitality industry, but in the broader business community. Amara's leadership had turned what could have been a devastating scandal into a story of redemption and growth. The hotel was thriving, and its success was a testament to the power of integrity, inclusivity, and unwavering determination. But Amara wasn't one to rest on her laurels. She knew that maintaining success was just as challenging as achieving it, and she was determined to keep pushing forward. Her vision for the Eclipse extended beyond its walls. She wanted it to be a model for ethical business practices and a force for positive change in the community. One morning, as she walked through the hotel's newly renovated lobby, she noticed a group of students gathered near the reception desk. They were part of a local high school's hospitality program, and they had been invited to tour the hotel as part of a career development initiative. Amara had personally approved the program, believing in the importance of inspiring the next generation of leaders. She approached the group, her presence immediately commanding attention. "Good morning," she said with a warm smile. "Welcome to the Eclipse. I'm Amara Johnson, the owner of this hotel." The students' eyes widened in awe, and one of them, a bold young woman with a notebook in hand, stepped forward. "Ms. Johnson, it's such an honor to meet you. I've read so much about what you've done here. You're such an inspiration." Amara's smile widened. "Thank you. That means a lot. But let me tell you something. Success isn't about being perfect. It's about learning from your mistakes, standing up for what's right, and never giving up, no matter how hard things get. The students listened intently, hanging on her every word. Amara spent the next hour sharing her story, answering their questions, and offering advice. By the time the tour resumed, the students were buzzing with excitement, their minds filled with new possibilities. Later that day, Amara met with Lisa and the senior management team to discuss the hotel's next steps. They had achieved so much, but there was still more to do. One of the key items on the agenda was the launch of the Eclipse Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting underserved communities through education, job training, and mentorship programs. The foundation is our chance to give back, Amara explained during the meeting. We've been given so much, and it's our responsibility to help others achieve their dreams. I want the Eclipse to be more than just a hotel. I want it to be a force for good. The team was enthusiastic about the idea, and they quickly got to work on the details. The foundation would partner with local schools, businesses, and community organizations to create opportunities for those who needed them most. It was an ambitious project, but Amara was confident they could make it happen. As the weeks went by, the Eclipse Foundation began to take shape. Amara and her team held meetings with potential partners, secured funding, and developed programs that would have a real impact. The foundation's first initiative was a scholarship program for students pursuing careers in hospitality, with a focus on diversity and inclusion. The launch event was held in the hotel's grand ballroom, and it was a night to remember. Guests included local leaders, business executives, and community members, all of whom were eager to support the foundation's mission. Amara stood at the podium, her voice filled with passion as she addressed the crowd. The Eclipse Foundation is more than just a charity, she said. It's a promise to create opportunities, to break down barriers, and to build a future where everyone has the chance to succeed. Together, we can make a difference. The room erupted into applause, and Amara felt a surge of pride. This was what she had been working toward, a legacy that extended beyond the hotel, a legacy of hope and empowerment. But even as she celebrated this new chapter, Amara couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to do. She had achieved so much, but she knew that the work was never truly finished. There would always be new challenges, new opportunities, and new ways to make a difference. One evening, as she stood on the rooftop terrace, Lisa joined her, a thoughtful expression on her face. "You've done an incredible job, Amara. But I have to ask, what's next for you?" Amara smiled, her gaze fixed on the city lights. "I'm not sure yet, but I know one thing. I'm not done. There's still so much more to do, so many more lives to touch. And I'm ready for whatever comes next." Lisa nodded, her eyes filled with admiration. "Whatever it is, I'll be right there with you." As they stood there, watching the sun set over the city, Amara felt a sense of quiet determination. The Eclipse Hotel was more than just a business. It was a symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of doing what's right. And she was ready to take that legacy to new heights. The journey wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning, and Amara couldn't wait to see where it would take her next. Chapter 10. The Legacy. The Eclipse Hotel had become more than just a luxury destination. It was a symbol of transformation, resilience, and hope. Under Amara's leadership, it had weathered storms, overcome challenges, and emerged stronger than ever. But for Amara, the journey was far from over. She had built something extraordinary, and now it was time to ensure that her legacy would endure. The Eclipse Foundation was thriving, its programs making a tangible difference in the community. Scholarships were awarded to deserving students, job training programs were empowering individuals to build better futures, and partnerships with local organizations were creating opportunities where they were needed most. Amara poured her heart into the foundation, knowing that its impact would extend far beyond her lifetime. One afternoon, as she was reviewing the foundation's latest initiatives with Lisa, she received an unexpected call. It was from a representative of a prestigious international hospitality award. The Eclipse Hotel had been nominated for the Global Excellence in Leadership and Innovation Award, and Amara was invited to attend the ceremony in Paris. "This is incredible," Lisa said, her eyes wide with excitement. "It's a huge honor. You have to go?" Amara smiled, but her expression was thoughtful. "It's not just about me. This is a recognition of everything we've accomplished as a team. And it's an opportunity to show the world what's possible when you lead with integrity and purpose. The award ceremony was held in a grand ballroom in the heart of Paris. The room was filled with industry leaders, innovators, and visionaries, all gathered to celebrate excellence in hospitality. Amara sat at a table near the front, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and pride. She had come a long way from the woman who had once walked into the Eclipse Hotel incognito, determined to uncover the truth. When her name was called, the room erupted into applause. Amara walked to the stage, her head held high, and accepted the award with grace and humility. As she stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, she felt a surge of emotion. "Thank you," she began, her voice steady but filled with warmth. "This award is not just for me. It's for everyone who believed in the vision of the Eclipse Hotel. It's for the team that worked tirelessly to turn a moment of crisis into an opportunity for growth. It's for the community that supported us and the guests who trusted us. And it's for the next generation of leaders who remind us every day that the future is bright." She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. The Eclipse Hotel is more than just a business. It's a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of integrity, and the belief that we can always do better. This award is a reminder that our work is never done, that there are always new challenges to face, new opportunities to seize, and new ways to make a difference. The room erupted into applause once more, and Amara felt a sense of fulfillment unlike anything she had ever experienced. This was more than just an award. It was a validation of everything she had worked for, everything she had fought for. When she returned to the Eclipse Hotel, she was greeted with a celebration. The staff had decorated the lobby with banners and balloons, and they cheered as she walked through the doors. Amara was overwhelmed by their support, their enthusiasm a reminder of why she had fought so hard to protect this place. "This is for all of you," she said, holding up the award. "We did this together." The celebration lasted late into the night, but Amara found a quiet moment to step outside onto the rooftop terrace. The city lights sparkled below, and the air was filled with the hum of life. She stood there, reflecting on everything she had accomplished and everything that was still to come. Lisa joined her, a glass of champagne in hand. "You've built something incredible, Amara. But I have to ask, what's next?" Amara smiled, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "The eclipse is just the beginning. There's still so much more to do, so many more lives to touch, so many more dreams to inspire. And I'm ready for whatever comes next." Lisa raised her glass. "To the future." Amara clinked her glass against Lisa's, a sense of quiet determination filling her heart. "To the future." As they stood there, watching the stars twinkle above, Amara knew that her journey was far from over. The Eclipse Hotel was her legacy, but it was also a stepping stone, a foundation for something even greater. And she was ready to take that next step, to continue building a future where integrity, resilience, and hope would always prevail. The story of the Eclipse Hotel was just one chapter in a much larger narrative, and Amara couldn't wait to see where the next chapter would take her.